guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's case I will be covering a case that was recommended by one of you lovely subscribers. So without further ado, let's get into this case. But before we do get into today's case, please do not forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And also, if you yourself do have a case recommendation, please do let me know in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to cover your case as well. Just a little pre-warning that, as you guys know, I do have a pet gerbil in my room. You might hear her here and there because she is very active at night time, but it shouldn't be too distracting. So let's just get straight into today's case. So this case is better known as the acid bath killer or the acid bath murderer. So let's get started. One of the most bizarre and disturbing cases of mass murder is that committed by John Haigh. Now, his name can be pronounced as John Haigh or John Haigh, but I've done my research on Google Translate and it's pronounced Haigh apparently, but I'll just be calling him John. Anyway, he was a respectable, well-dressed, middle-class man with a surfeit of charm, but who in the late 1940s disposed of at least 6 victims in a manner that prompted his labelling as a vampire. His motivations for his crimes, which involved luring his prey to a fate where their blood was consumed before being dissolved in acid, have never been clearly corroborated. He's claimed to have been disturbed in his childhood by his strict religious parents, leading to a bonehead had been the result of him sinning in his youth. It is perhaps not surprising that the younger Haigh became obsessed and terrified by developing a similar sign of the devil. Due to the slightest misdemeanor, he was told that his mother had no mark as she was an angel. It is said that a turning point in the boy's developing psyche came when Haigh realised that no such blemish would appear. Despite having lied or committed some other questionable behaviour, he then started to believe that he was invincible and could get away with anything. Claims of being afflicted by dreams of gothic nightmarish proportions, where trees were turned into crucifixes weeping blood, have to be viewed with caution. Haigh was later known to be manipulative and compulsive liar, prone to saying anything to extricate himself from a compromising position. At the time of his arrest for murder, his personal inquiries into what may be for him, he was found to be insane, is an indication that Haigh was aware that appearing bonkers and damaged by his childhood would possibly work in his favour when it came to court. managed to convince Mcswan's parents that their son had gone away to avoid conscription. He even sent fake postcards to them from Scotland pretending to be their son. However, Haig's main concern was to acquire the rest of the Mcswan assets. The next murder would be committed with the addition of new equipment to deal with dissolving bodies. A stir-up pump, DIY tin face masks and even a bathtub made of steel, painted to make it more resistant to corrosion, were all employed by Haigh in his obscene workshop of death. According to a police statement, before Haigh ventured on his plan to cruelly dispose of the remainder of the Mcswan family, he also murdered a middle-aged woman from Hammersmith. The Mcswans disappeared on July 2nd, 1945. They were killed in a similar tragic way to their son. Haigh hit them first, killing them, and then claimed to have drunk their blood before dissolving them in acid baths. After informing the Mcswans' landlady that the couple had gone to America, Haigh had all of their mail forwarded to him, including a Mr. Mcswan's pension. He then set about forging their son's signature on a power of attorney form. By forging a deed on a property owned by Mrs. Mcswan and appropriating it into a false name, Haigh managed to make nearly £2,000 from selling this property that, along with securities and sales of possessions, totaled to £6,000. For a while, Haigh managed to swindle people through a variety of scams, including posing as a liaison officer dealing with patients and setting up fake branches in several towns. It was also around this time that he later claimed in a police confession that he had killed and disposed of a young man called Max from Kensington. Haigh's spoils from the Mcswans were running out fast, and the sociopath needed money from the new victims. This time he chose a more worldly couple. Dr. Archibald Henderson, 52, and his wife Rose, 41, who were selling their home. Cultivating a relationship with the couple based on a shared passion for music, Haigh encouraged them to reveal information about their properties. Renting a storehouse on Leopold Road in Crawley, London, Haigh moved his possessions from Gloucestershire Street and began setting up his obscene workshop once again. This time he ordered 3 carboys of sulfuric acid and 2 40-gallon drums without tops. On 12th of February 1946, he drove Dr. Henderson to Crawley and shot him in the head with Crawley's own revolver. He then left the body in a storeroom and set off to get Mrs. Henderson. After some reluctance, she was driven to the storehouse. Haigh shot her from behind, and after trussing up both her and her husband's bodies, left them overnight. Haigh later claimed to the police that he drank blood from both of them. Also, Rose Henderson's brother was once again causing problems for Haigh by insisting that the police locate his sister due to a death in the family. Haigh realised that he would have to silence him too. Before Haigh could carry out his callous intentions on both Mrs. Deacon and Berlin Henderson, he was arrested. His first comment to the reception officer when he first arrived at Lewis prison was that this is the result of doing 6 people, but not for personal gain. Haigh then confessed everything. Beside his parents, the one person who was profoundly affected by news of Haigh being a callous mass murderer was Barbara, the woman he was supposed to love and marry. She visited him regularly in prison, trying to understand what kind of man she had been involved with. Did she intend to kill her? She asked. He never entertained the idea, was the seemingly genuine reply. However, Barbara knew that at some point she may have succumbed to a similar fate when I saw her as an inconvenience. There appeared to be no remorse on his part, and he relieved in revealing his grisly escapades, which was recounted in the newspapers. Even although the acid had destroyed a great deal of evidence, not everything had been eliminated. Ghoulish relics such small bones, dentures, Mr. Henderson's foot and a gallbladder were all discovered. As the forensic team sifted through tons of mud and sludge, technicians had to wear rubber gloves and covered their arms in Vaseline to protect themselves from the acid. They found the following items: 28 pounds of human body fat, 3 faceted gallstones, part of a left foot not quite eroded, 18 fragments of human bone, up and lower dentures intact, the handle of a red plastic bag, and a lipstick container. Despite the forensic evidence, it was Haig's very own sense of invincibility and arrogance that was to be his greatest undoing in finding him guilty. Haigh was of the opinion that nothing could be found from his human slaughterhouse, and confidently recounted in great detail his escapades of death. As far as it was concerned, it was a case of corpus delicti, no bodies, no crime, no punishment. On 18th of July 1949, 4,000 people crowded into the small town of Louis, hoping to get a seat in the court. Mr. Justice Humphreys presided. Haigh had no money to pay for his defence, so the News of the World newspaper did a deal with him and offered to pay for his counsel if he would provide them with an exclusive. The Daily Mirror newspaper was also found in contempt of court for empathising Haigh being a vampire. The editor, Sylvester Balam, was sentenced to 3 months in prison. The paper also had to pay £10,000 in court costs. Haigh pleaded not guilty. The prosecution rested its case of deliberate, premeditated the question